I noticed my wife was planning a divorce, so I protected my assets just in time. 3 weeks later, Hey guys, before we start today's video, I need your help. I have noticed that the channel is losing traction and subscribing is one of the best way that you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thank you very much. I always believed marriage was built on trust, shared dreams, and the ability to navigate storms together. When I married Claire, it felt like I was stepping into a future full of hope and promise. We had our differences. Everyone does, but I never imagined that one day I'd find myself playing defense in a financial chess game against the woman I once held closest. It started subtly. Claire began hiding her phone, smiling at texts she wouldn't explain, and suddenly needing me time more than ever. I chalked it up to stress, maybe burnout, or a phase. But the late-night whispers on the phone and increased. Lunches with her lawyer friend Marla started to alarm me. Then I saw a printed spreadsheet left in the printer tray, columns labeled liquid assets, joint accounts, retirement, and worst of all, expected settlement. My heart sank. My wife was not just thinking about leaving me, she was preparing a full-blown legal ambush. That's when everything shifted. I knew if I didn't act fast, I'd be financially ruined and emotionally devastated. I had to be smart, cautious, and strategic. I couldn't confront her, not yet. Any reaction would alert her and give her the upper hand. No, I had to play it like a game of chess. Quiet, calculated moves. First, I made copies of every financial document I could find: bank statements, property deeds, investment portfolios, even old receipts that showed my solo investments. Then I reached out to a lawyer who specialized in high-stakes divorces. His first words were, "You're lucky you caught it early." From there, the real game began. Every evening, while Claire went out for a drive or yoga, I met with my attorney Daniel. He didn't mince words. "Your wife is preparing to clean you out," he said, showing me how spouses sometimes slowly maneuver themselves into the victim position, claiming emotional neglect, coercion, and even twisting private conversations into legal narratives. It felt surreal. I started protecting my personal assets quietly. I opened a new bank account in my name, only legal, since it was funded with income from before the marriage, and transferred only the amounts that were provably mine. I documented everything. Not a dollar moved without a paper trail. I also froze unnecessary joint spending. Suddenly, Claire was confused why our fun money account had dwindled. I played dumb. "Must be some subscription charges," I said. Then I updated the beneficiary information on my retirement accounts. Most people forget to do that, and ex-spouses have been known to cash in on old paperwork. Daniel also advised me to buy a post-marriage separate property and investment conduit, a trust under my cousin's name. Legal again, because it used premarital funds. Claire never suspected a thing. But what rattled me most wasn't the money, it was the betrayal. This was the woman I'd trusted with my vulnerabilities, who I'd comforted through panic attacks, who I helped when her mom passed, and now she was staging a quiet coup. 3 weeks into this hidden war, Claire's behavior became stranger. She was overly nice, cooked dinner more often, complimented my cologne, asked how work was. It was unsettling. I later realized it was all part of her script to paint a happy marriage so she could later argue I was the one who suddenly changed. But I kept my act tighter. I smiled, laughed, helped with dishes, kissed her goodnight. I was documenting everything, even installed a voice-activated recorder in the car, just in case. It might sound paranoid, but Daniel said one thing that stuck: the one who prepares first usually wins. Claire didn't know that I had already gathered months of proof texts between her and Marla, planning the timing of the divorce. Her outlining how she'd argue emotional neglect, and worse, suggesting false mental health claims against me. All stored safely in cloud drives with timestamps. I even hired a private investigator, who within 4 days got photos of Claire having lunch with another man. Nothing romantic yet, but it showed intent. The guy was a financial consultant. That's when the full puzzle clicked. She was planning to file, hit me with claims, drain joint accounts, and then start fresh with professional financial advice to maximize her win. It was like watching someone plan a robbery while smiling in your face. Except this wasn't a stranger. Was my wife. My lawyer advised me to initiate the filing myself. Beat her to it. I was hesitant still emotionally, hoping I was wrong. But I couldn't ignore the facts, so I filed, quietly. No confrontation, no shouting match, just signed documents, handed over evidence, and let Daniel do his job. Claire came home to the official service papers 3 weeks after her spreadsheet left the printer. The look on her face was priceless: shock, confusion, then fury. "You did this to us," she spat. I stayed calm. I just protected what was mine. That night she screamed, threatened, cried, tried to gaslight me, called it a betrayal. I almost laughed. The irony was suffocating. She packed a bag and left. I didn't stop her. In the days that followed, she tried to spin the narrative, texted mutual friends, said I blindsided her. Luckily, I had everything backed up: dates, messages, timelines. When I shared the truth with a few close friends, They were horrified, especially after I showed them screenshots of her negotiation notes with Marla. The court didn't take long. With the evidence of premeditated financial manipulation and misleading planning, the judge ruled heavily in my favor. Claire got nothing from my separate assets, not even the condo, because, legally, it wasn't mine anymore. The joint assets were divided, but with proof of her bad faith planning, I walked away with most of it. She looked stunned in court. The woman, who thought she'd strip me clean, ended up exposed and legally cornered. Even after the judgment, Claire kept trying to play victim. Social media posts about unexpected heartbreak, hashtags like #healing, and #starting over. Meanwhile, I stayed silent. Dignity was more powerful than drama. But the final twist came when my lawyer found that Claire and her financial consultant friend had secretly tried to move a portion of our joint account funds before I filed technically an illegal transfer attempt. Daniel filed a motion. The court froze her accounts temporarily and launched an inquiry. She had no explanation, just silence. The irony. The same spreadsheet she printed to plan her divorce was now used as evidence against her. You can't make this stuff up. A few weeks later, I got an email from Marla, her lawyer, friend, sounding like damage control. Claire is deeply sorry. She didn't mean for things to escalate. Would you consider settling quietly? I didn't reply. I had already won. Not just legally, but morally. I moved on, bought a new place, focused on work, and for the first time in years, I slept without worry. In the weeks that followed, I stayed silent and focused on rebuilding my life. But the quiet didn't mean I wasn't aware of Claire's movements. I had set alerts for any joint financial activity just in case. And sure enough, 2 alerts came through. One from an old credit card that had been mostly inactive, and another from a shared travel membership we'd barely used. Claire was still trying to squeeze value out of every corner. But what she didn't realize was that the divorce settlement had already barred her from making unilateral decisions on shared resources. Daniel jumped on it immediately, sending her a cease and desist through the court. She was now being monitored for post-divorce violations, which could end up costing her even more. It was almost sad to watch a woman, once so composed now spiraling, trying to salvage any power she thought she had left. Her social media turned cryptic, full of vague quotes about betrayal, fake people, and karmic justice. I never commented, never engaged. That was her battlefield now, and I had already left it behind. Meanwhile, I focused on clearing emotional residue from my life. I began therapy not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand how I missed all the red flags. The therapist said something profound. Some people don't love you, they love controlling you. Once they sense they're losing that control, they implode. That hit hard. Claire never expected me to be 3 steps ahead. She assumed I'd react, beg, cry, lose my mind. Instead, I played it with calm precision. I didn't just survive, I neutralized the threat before it could detonate. That alone gave me more peace than any revenge plot ever could. A few months later, while walking out of a coffee shop, I saw Claire in person for the first time since court. She looked thinner, tired, carrying a phone but no sparkle. We locked eyes for just a second. She nodded slightly. I gave a polite, neutral smile and walked past. No conversation, no drama. Later that evening I got a text. You look well. I hope life's good to you. I stared at it for a while, unsure if it was guilt, manipulation, or both. I never replied. Some things don't deserve closure through conversation. Sometimes, your peace is the closure. Life after Claire turned out to be more rewarding than I expected. I found hobbies. I had ignored travel, photography, even piano lessons. Without the emotional drain of constant suspicion, I had room to breathe, to think clearly. Friends who once doubted my silence during the divorce now came around, admitting they'd seen her side only to later realize the truth. One friend told me she was playing a game, but she didn't realize you were playing chess while she was stuck on checkers. I laughed. It felt accurate. The emotional manipulation, the weaponized affection, the planned betrayal, it was all designed to destroy me slowly, while making it look like I was the villain. But I didn't just protect my money, I protected my sanity. And that, in the end, was priceless. About 6 months after everything settled, I learned Claire had moved back in with her parents. Her dream of a luxury apartment and independent life fizzled out when the financial reality hit. She didn't get the settlement she expected. Her career had stagnated due to missed deadlines and emotional volatility, and her relationship with the financial advisor guy non-existent. Turns out he ghosted her the moment things got complicated. A mutual acquaintance told me Claire had tried rekindling old friendships, but most people kept her at arm's length. The truth had a way of traveling. People remembered how fast she went from loving wife to scheming opportunist. Her own friends started questioning how genuine her victim narrative had been. I wasn't surprised. A lie can only carry weight for so long before it collapses under its own contradictions. Meanwhile, I kept progressing. New clients came through my business. My financial health recovered faster than expected. And more importantly, I found peace in solitude. There were moments, sure, when memories crept in. Nostalgic moments of laughter, vacations, and shared dreams. But then I'd remember the spreadsheet, the cold logic of dividing a life like property. that snapped me back to reality every time. You don't mourn the mask, you acknowledge the deception and walk away with wisdom. 1 year passed, and I got a wedding invitation from a cousin. Claire would be there too. We had been part of a close social circle before everything went down. I debated skipping it, but then I thought, why hide? I had nothing to be ashamed of, so I went. Confident, dressed sharp, with a lightness I hadn't felt in years. Claire was there, sitting at a side table, looking quieter than usual. We didn't interact directly, but her eyes followed me a few times during the event. I caught her once, and she looked away. I had become a symbol of something she failed to destroy. The strength to protect myself without rage, the ability to act with grace while under attack, it all reflected in that moment. Several guests came up to me, commending how I handled things. Some even asked for my lawyer's number. Apparently, Claire wasn't the only one trying to play dirty in relationships. I realized then how many people quietly suffer, unsure how to respond when the person they love becomes a legal adversary. That night, I made a quiet decision. I would anonymously post my story on Reddit, not for validation, but to give others a roadmap, a sign that it's okay to be calm, calculated, and quiet in your strength. That revenge isn't loud, it's smart. The Reddit post exploded. Within days, tens of thousands of people had upvoted, commented, and shared it. DM after DM poured in from people, men and women, thanking me for showing them another path. I thought I was crazy until I read this. One woman said, "You gave me hope." Another man wrote, "It felt surreal." A deeply personal betrayal had become a blueprint for others to navigate their own battles. The community even dubbed it one of the most satisfying quiet revenge stories of the year. I stayed anonymous, but part of me smiled every time I saw it reposted on different platforms with comments like, "This is how you handle a snake in disguise." It wasn't about dragging Claire's name, it was about turning pain into purpose. That post turned into a sort of closure I hadn't known I needed. Seeing that my story helped others gave the entire ordeal meaning. It wasn't just a personal crisis, it became a public service. And every time someone commented, "I feel seen," I felt a little more healed. Maybe that's the real revenge, not just surviving, but turning the damage into a lighthouse for others lost in the same storm. Time passed, and eventually, I did fall in love again. With someone honest, transparent, emotionally mature. Someone who didn't see relationships as transactions but as shared journeys. The difference was night and day. I was cautious, yes, but not fearful. I had learned that boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They keep the manipulators out, and the genuine connections in this new relationship taught me that love, when untainted by control or games, feels peaceful. There were no secrets, no withheld phone screens, no vague explanations, just honesty. The scars from Claire remained, but they no longer bled. They were simply reminders of how far I'd come, and in moments of reflection, I sometimes reread that spreadsheet, the one Claire printed with her cold plans. I kept it as a reminder of how quiet cruelty can be, how danger doesn't always shout, it whispers, and how silence, patience, and preparation can be the most powerful responses to betrayal. Now, years later, I live in a different city. New home, new life, new peace. Sometimes people ask, if you could go back, would you change anything? And I always say no. Not because it was easy, but because it taught me everything I needed to know about people, trust, and self-worth. Claire taught me, unintentionally, how to listen more carefully, to read between the lines, to act before it's too late. I didn't just win a divorce, I won clarity, and that clarity shaped the rest of my life. I never wished her harm. Revenge, as sweet as it sounds, isn't about destroying someone. It's about refusing to be destroyed. That was my story. Quiet, strategic, and victorious in the most important way. I came out whole. Not bitter, not broken, just better.